takes a lot of courage to go through what we've been through.
The doctors themselves are coming more and more because they say, hey, I'm not the same.
I laid in bed for 6 months with this raging pain.
One of the things that we have to have the courage to do is to act upon the information we have in front of us.
And what's the success of some of these therapies? What are you seeing as the results?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a great deal of promise.
So we need this solution because it will create a cancer from here to 2030.
Hey, it's Jonathan Otto and welcome to bonus episode 8 of Healing Revolution. We'll be diving into another weapon that they've been using against us to undermine our health: weaponized stress. Stress is everywhere, rampant, unrelenting, and normalized. We're bombarded daily with negative news, social pressures, and environmental chaos. From these alone, it's very clear that stress is being weaponized against us, and the impact it has on our bodies and minds is far more dangerous than what we think. Studies have shown that chronic stress isn't just a mental state. In fact, it can sabotage the immune system, wreak havoc on our hormones, and even contribute to serious conditions like heart disease, diabetes, and autoimmune disorders. In fact, chronic stress is linked to a 40% higher risk of developing heart disease. That's not just stress, it's a ticking time bomb in your body. Another interesting piece of information is the fact that, according to research, stress is literally reshaping the way our DNA functions. High levels of stress can alter our genetic expression, making us more vulnerable to diseases and disorders. In other words, the stress we're under doesn't just affect how we feel, it can actually reprogram our biology to work against us. In this episode, join me as we learn more about how stress is being weaponized in today's society, as well as the natural and effective tools that our experts recommend to detox your bodies of chronic stress. To kick off this episode, Dr. Jennifer Taylor uncovers a hidden health threat that's affecting nearly every one of us, and most of us don't even realize it. Did you know that the average person encounters over 700,000 toxic chemicals every day, from EMFs in your Wi-Fi to pesticides in your food? Research published in the Journal of Environmental and Public Health confirms these toxins silently overload your nervous system, disrupting balance and causing widespread inflammation. But how do invisible toxins trigger physical disease? And what's really happening in your nervous system when it's bombarded by this toxic overload? Dr. Taylor explains exactly how these toxins quietly damage your health, why modern medicine overlooks this critical connection, and the simple strategies you can start today to cleanse your body and reclaim control over your life and over your health.
The next one, toxins. Well, we live in a toxic soup. From the EMFs that are coming off our Wi-Fi, from the water that we drink, to all of the chemicals that are found in our food. Those can actually affect our nervous system as well. Anything that can affect our nervous system can cause a misalignment, can cause a state of dis-ease within the body. Now, if you think about the origin of the word disease, it's the body not at ease, dis-ease. So that's what we kind of look at when we look at toxins. Are we drinking enough good, clean, fresh, toxin-free water? Most of us are chronically dehydrated, right? I mean, really the rule of thumb to make sure you're drinking enough water is half your body weight in ounces per day. That's the goal to get to. Now, if you're doing labor outside and you're sweating a lot, doing a lot of sports, well, that's, you drink a little bit more than that. But for a regular day, that's a really good way to kind of flush out those toxins. I liken it to a shower for the inside of your body. If you're drinking nothing but soda, tea, coffee, and things that really aren't cleansing, think of if you took a shower every day in the things that you were drinking. Would you be sticky and smelly? Probably. We don't want the insides to be that way either. So water is a big part of getting rid of those toxins. Also, doing regular cleanses, whether they be, parasite cleanses, whether it be, intermittent fasting, whether it be just fasting overall. Those things can make a really big difference to your health as well. And just read labels or eat food that has no labels. Those are some things that you can do to reduce the toxic load. We can't get away from the air that we breathe, but we can filter our water. We can read labels. So that's a great way to make sure that we don't have toxins in our body. And really, for the most part, unless it's absolutely, absolutely necessary, try not to take a ton of medications. Ask your doctor. Ask your prescriber, is there some way I cannot take this statin? Is there some way I cannot take this blood pressure medication? These are things that are people on chronically for the rest of their lives. Now, some things are needed. I'm not saying they're not needed, especially to get out of a crisis. However, lifestyle choices, particularly with high, cholesterol or high blood pressure or high blood sugar. All of those things are all lifestyle diseases. We don't have high cholesterol, high blood sugar, unless you're type 1 diabetic, obviously. But if you're type 2 diabetic, you don't have it because you have lack of metformin in your bloodstream. It's a lifestyle disease. So let's talk about toxins that way. So talk about how can you create a better lifestyle so you don't have to take those medications and your prescriber can slowly wean you off. Now, thoughts. I would say that's probably the biggest one. We're under a lot of stress. No matter where you live, we have been through basically the biggest psychological experiment that we've ever been under over the past 4 to 5 years. And I think we're still reeling from that. But also we have political strife. We have so many things going on in our climate where we're just overloaded with so much negativity and so much fear. Job losses, all those things that basically are part of life. They do weigh heavily on us. And I would say probably the majority of patients that come in and their atlas is out of alignment, they can probably pinpoint it to a stressor. It could come from home, it can come from work, kids, just life in general. It's those emotional stressors that can really wreak havoc on our nervous system. I'll give you an example. So when you see somebody walk into a room and they're sitting up like this and they've got a smile on their face, they look less stressed? Or does a person that comes in that was looking like this, and their shoulders are up to their earlobes, think about just the posture you get when you're stressed. It's more that fight or flight. Everything comes inward and you're ready to do this. That is what that fight or flight, that stress response is. That sympathetic nervous system response that can basically just zap your nervous system. And again, we go back to the fact that this upper cervical area is more vulnerable to that. So trauma, toxins, and thoughts, the 3 T's, that's what causes a subluxation and misalignment of the spine. So trauma is quite obvious, how the atlas gets misaligned or just any spinal misalignment. However, it's a little more ambiguous when you're looking at, the toxins and the thoughts of the emotional stressors. So it becomes a little bit more ambiguous when it comes to the toxins and the thoughts or emotional responses to cause a subluxation or that misalignment of the spine. So let's go back to toxins. So toxins can affect the nervous system, and many do. Most actually can target the nervous system. So we look at something like glyphosate that's found on in Roundup and things like that are basically sprayed all over our food, whether it be as an herbicide or they actually even use it as a desiccant for so they can better harvest, a faster harvest. So use it for multiple reasons on multiple different things, like your wheat, your beans, and things like that. That's most common. So when we're looking at those, they actually target the nervous system. They actually can cause problems in the gut, which actually can cause problems with your nervous system because your gut and your brain are uniquely connected. So we have a lot of upheaval. That in turn causes inflammation. Well, what has to regulate all that? It's your nervous system. Your nervous system has to regulate all of this. It has to regulate the way that the liver is dealing with all these toxins so you don't die. So the more work the nervous system has to do with what's being put into or even onto our bodies, the harder it is for the nervous system to deal with their everyday stuff. just everyday work. So it becomes overburdened. I like to liken it to a backpack. So say you're in a pool and you've got this backpack on. The more rocks you put in that backpack, the harder it is for you to stay afloat, right? So it's really, really hard to make sure that, taking in those toxins, we actually get those out, because we don't want our backpacks to basically put us underwater. As far as the thoughts are concerned, that's more of a physical response to, put it this way. We have always heard the statement as the weight of the world sits on our shoulders. And actually, you can feel that. I mean, if everybody right now just checks their shoulders, are they hard? Do they hurt? Are they sore? Well, that's because your body's been like this due to whatever's going on with it. Sitting at your computer 8 hours a day, that's what I see on a regular basis, is I see patients that are like this. They're always on their computer. They're always like this. Just being on the computer with all that blue light poking right into our eyeballs, into our brain, that blue light causes a stress response that actually causes us to get into that fight or flight response, that positioning of our body. And it can cause stressors and strains. Those muscles start to tighten and everything just starts to twist and turn. So the way emotional stress comes in and what it does to us physically can actually cause that misalignment. And again, the atlas is one of the most vulnerable areas.
Hey there, it's Jonathan here. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Healing Revolution. I look forward to seeing you inside of our program. I know that you may have already made that decision because thousands of people have said yes and are claiming these amazing tools. You would have just got the announcement. You would have heard that we're now having not just the 8 supplements, but all 11 supplements on a complete 90-day protocol. And as you know, I believe you should know this, but the mitochondrial health is so critical in your organs. That's why we've got key formulas that are proven to support mitochondrial function and mitochondrial function in certain organs. And that belt is designed to apply over these critical areas and to move around the body and to make it very easy to use, which you can do while you're watching anything and or kind of performing some tasks there at home. And so it's such a simple way to achieve healing, and it's one that I'm so excited about. And I've seen so many different transformations. We've been sharing with you these stories because they're so touching. And I want you to have these health and healing benefits. I don't want you to just sit and watch other people achieve this when this could be your transformation. So take action for your health, for your life, and look at what's in store for you. The changes, the transformations are just unbelievable. They're just almost unbelievable. It just depends, right? Where it really only becomes fully believable once it happens to you, because it kind of just stays in this element of mystery, like, yeah, but really, are you sure? But once you see it in your own life or in somebody that's really close to you, then it becomes so crystal clear on how healing is possible and the pathway to health and healing. Many of us have had a lot of devastating stories and news around us that has really created a message in our minds that suffering is the ultimate outcome, death is the ultimate outcome. And this is the story that we're rewriting with Healing Revolution and with these amazing life-changing protocols. So when you get something like the red light therapy belt, I'll show you this here. Here we are here. I've got on the pulsation method, which is not the one that I use all the time, but you have the opportunity to use that. And then this is high quality, super high quality, and you could just put it in all the key areas. But I wanted to explain to you why it's so important to understand. The reason why a tool like this is so inexpensive is because a red light therapy belt, which I need to put underneath my shirt, but I'll just keep it there for illustration purposes, is because it's a one and done. Like, you don't keep reordering it. It's not that it only works a few times, it continues to work. And as this therapy tool continues to get utilized by you, unlike paying for a session of red light therapy, which would be between $80 to $200 per session, and then it's kind of hard to then justify being able to get that in a few times a week because it's costing you, then you keep adding up these costs, so that doesn't really become viable. So then people just say no to it. But one of the ways to make sure that you've got access to this and it's in your home is simply to get a red light therapy device. It's easy to use, that straps around key parts of your body and that you could use, and that will put red light therapy in your body. The results are just mind-blowing, especially when combined with supplementation. But the cost is so little because you're getting it for free. But even if you were to stack what you actually paying, and then you look at how that ends up costing over the year, and then over the next few years or even 5 or 10 years, you see that it just really costs nothing at all, like literally not even dollars per month. It doesn't even cost that because you just spend that over the next 5 or 10 years. And so when you start thinking like this, then you are understanding how all the things that cost you a lot of money, like the doctor's visits and it taking you out of action from other things that would either generate income or they just accumulatively end up costing you money. All the different functions, the different products you might have to use to help offset different issues that red light therapy is proven to help with, whether it's eyesight, skin issues. The list keeps going on and on and on. Chronic back pain, gut issues, inflammation, edema, digestive issues. Red light therapy is proven to help in all these areas. Brain fog, executive function, memory recall. You're able to support all these critical functions with one therapy. So use this tool and claim this while it's available. It's something that I added in. I thought, what's something I could do that would be amazing? It's not something we'll be able to continue to offer. So make sure to grab it here on this page by just scrolling down below, placing your order on this page while it's available with all the gifts and bonuses. We'll just open this up and get this available for the next couple of episodes so that you can grab it while it's available before we then take that down and close that up and inevitably sell out, as we have so much demand and so many people that are wanting this. But it's available now, so grab it here on this page. I look forward to seeing you inside the program. I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. Just scroll down below and choose your package below and click the button to get started. Thanks so much. Next up, Dr. Brandon Nutt challenges the conventional thinking around inflammation, trauma, and chronic illness. We've always been told inflammation is harmful, but recent research in the journal Nature Medicine reveals that it's actually an essential part of healing, designed to alert your immune system after an injury. The real danger arises when your body gets stuck in chronic inflammation, a situation affecting over 60% of Americans today, leading to autoimmune diseases, brain fog, and neurological damage. But why do traditional treatments often fail to control this wildfire of inflammation? And how can we effectively support the body's natural healing processes instead of simply suppressing symptoms? Dr. Nutt explains exactly what's happening inside your body during chronic inflammation, why addressing the root cause makes all the difference, and what proactive steps you can take to truly heal, even when mainstream medicine says there's nothing more that can be done. To end off this episode, Dr. Saumra Sridharan reveals a groundbreaking truth about chronic pain and disease that most doctors still overlook: the emotional root of physical suffering. Studies show over 75% of chronic illnesses have emotional or psychological stress as a contributing factor. Dr. Sridharan shares astonishing cases from her practice demonstrating how unresolved anger, stress, and anxiety can manifest as severe chronic pain, even when surgery and medications fail to provide relief. In this episode, Dr. Sridharan reveals the science behind emotional healing and the astonishing recoveries she's witnessed firsthand, and how ancient wisdom is now scientifically validated, proving that true healing begins by understanding the emotional roots of illness.
Again, our healthcare system looks at things individual. Like, you have this diagnosis and it's independent, right? And then you have this diagnosis and independent, and this diagnosis. And then we can see comorbidities, right? We know that if you're depressed, you're more likely to develop like Alzheimer's or neurodegenerative disorder. Now, should we be looking at that as common root cause? I believe so. I think we need to take a look and look at depression very differently than we look at it right now. I think way too often it's just, here's SSRI, here's SNRI, here's a prescription, and then they do make the recommendation, go talk to a counselor, I would hope, and then they would, and then kind of work all individually. Very little communication between providers. If we really want to make a big change in depression, I think there needs to be more focus on, like I said, there's a psychological piece, there's a metabolic piece. So running very thorough labs, looking at nutrients, looking at nutrient deficiencies, looking at anemias, and looking at inflammatory problems. When it comes to depression, looking at like brain activity, like using a QEEG, putting a cap on and looking at actual brain activity. We know depression is depressed brain, right? We shouldn't think of it as depression as in depressed, as in my psychology is depressed. That might be a symptom. But when you put a cap on QEEG, oftentimes you see depressed brain as in depressed function. It's just not having the activity that it should be. And that's why, for instance, we know that exercise, since the research has started in the 70s, that exercise is about as best thing you can do for depression as any type of medication, but why is the brain not as active as it should be? Is it because of nutrient deficiency? And these are things that we should be looking at. Is it because of inactivity? Is it because of head injury? And head injury induced psychiatric problems is a very common occurrence in people that have post-concussion symptoms, 7 or longer than 7 days after their injury. I'm seeing a patient right now who has a hyperactive limbic system. Basically, fight or flight response system kicks on every time that there's a stressor, and this is a 10-year-old boy, head injury. Everybody says miraculous recovery, but mom's noticing he, anytime presented with conflict, he acts out. Aggressively acts out, maybe physically acts out, and that is a trait that's common after head injury when we have frontal lobe involvement. And the frontal lobe is the part of the brain that gives us like thinking of the future and emotional regulation. And when we lose that, our anger can become more aggressive, more violent, more whatever. And we know that, for instance, people who've been incarcerated for violent crimes, they all report that there's depression, anxiety, and nervousness, and they report that there's oftentimes head injury in their past that might be, that might be associated with some of that brain dysfunction. So looking at those things and then kind of taking a step back and understanding that those problems likely lead to the neurodegenerative component. I think if you have nutrient deficiencies like omega-3s for your whole life, and it's not going to get better unless you know that it's bad in the first place. So if we're not doing anything about it, it's a natural progression. We have these symptoms, we have dysfunction, we have this dysfunction, and then later on, as our brain slows down as we age, or as there's hormonal changes, or as there's other inflammatory problems going on, as there's other cardiovascular issues going on, maybe plaquing or other things associated with nutrient deficiency, then the brain becomes even less functional. And now we have forgetfulness and irritability, a lot of, again, same symptoms. A lot of things that people talk about with degeneration of the brain looks a lot like depression, anxiety, nervousness, and irritability. I don't want to ever put limits on someone's ability to heal. It's not my job to tell someone whether they can be better or not, right? Like I can't, because I think there's something to be said psychologically. If I say, I think you've reached your maximum medical improvement and the person's not where they want it to be, it's discouraging, right? And I don't ever, I think it's okay for providers to say, I've done everything I can, but that shouldn't stop you from looking for more solutions or looking for different options. So I don't ever want to tell anybody whether they've made their maximum recovery or not. As far as like childhood neurological developmental problems, again, I don't ever want to put limitations on how functional a kid can be. A perfect story for this is the creator of the gyrostim. One of the pieces of equipment that we have at our office for vestibular therapies, potentially the first FDA cleared treatment for head injury. Basically, first piece of medical equipment shown to improve brain function after concussion or traumatic brain injury. the owner of that company has an incredible story. His daughter was born with cerebral palsy, non-ambulatory, non-verbal by the age of 4. And he's just being told by physical therapists. He obviously saw everybody. Physical therapists are saying, you need to do as much vestibular therapy as you can. I like to tell people the vestibular system is like the windmill in your brain. And if you can drive that windmill, the windmill can pump energy and information to the brain, and energy and information to the brain is how the brain heals. So when we can drive that type of activation, there's no limit on how far somebody can go when it comes to recovery. And his daughter's a perfect example. She graduated from, I believe it was Colorado College, with a master's degree in neuroscience after being non-ambulatory, non-verbal at 4 years old. So in that, you can see their story on gyrstem.com. So truly amazing. As long as you're alive, you can improve your brain. As long as you are breathing, as long as you're getting blood to your brain, oxygen to your brain, we can improve brain function. As long as we address the things that we talked about. If we can address nutrient deficiencies, if we can address oxygenation problems, oftentimes, unfortunately in birth, there can be, cord clamps, there can be, there can be cords around the neck, there can be, in twins, there can be hypoxic issues. There's also near fatal drownings and choking problem. And unfortunately, it's a fairly common occurrence. But if you have a brain and your heart's still pumping, you can make changes. You can drive adaptation. And that's what the brain is all about, is adaptation. How can I adapt to the environment that's presented to me? How can I adapt to the sensory information that's coming in and have a motor output that's appropriate? Inflammation is not always bad, right? The inflammatory process that happens after a head injury is a good thing. It signals to our immune system, hey, there's injury. We need your help. Immune system comes in, clears things out. Immune system calms back down, brain regains normal function hours to days later. That's what, for the most part, should happen. Now, like I said earlier, that inflammatory state can last for weeks, months, or years. And that's probably why a big player in, once you have one concussion, you're likely to get another, right? They always kind of say that, like, once you get one, it's easier to get another. It's like, is it? Or are we just still recovering from the first one? It's hard to say. Or did we not address that brain injury appropriately? So I think it's a tough question to answer. I think how our body manages inflammation is probably the underlying problem. If we can't regulate our immune system to manage our inflammation, unhealthy inflammation versus healthy inflammation, and we allow that unhealthy inflammation to just take off and turn into a wildfire throughout our entire body, then that fire is just going to keep burning and burning and burning, and ultimately bring on other symptoms, maybe more gut problems, maybe pancreatic or liver problems, maybe stomach problems, maybe eye problems, vascular problems, numbness and tingling in the hands and the feet. There can be, this is where the downward cascade of post-injury can really become pretty ugly. Or if we're being proactive, or at least, very well responding reactively, then we can at least halt it as best we can, or slow it down as best we can, or reverse it as best we can. I think, being an active member in your team, but having a team of providers who have a similar thought process, a similar idea, if your provider doesn't believe that you can heal, or your body can heal itself, that's probably a red flag to me, right? If I go in and someone says you have to have this medication or you have to have this treatment, otherwise you can't heal, that might be true in some cases, but it's not typically the treatment that's curing me. It's the treatment plus my body's response. People are opening their eyes that, traditional healthcare is dropping the ball when it comes to our health. Now, are we able to manage symptoms? Yes, but if we stop those traditional therapies, do your symptoms come back? Because we're not curing anything, we're just covering things up, right? So I think at the end of the day, having a team of providers who have their individual expertises can be incredibly beneficial. That's why we've expanded. We don't just have chiropractors. We have nurse practitioners. We have a medical doctor. We have massage therapists. We have QEEG. We have a bunch of different types of therapies, a bunch of different types of treatments, because we have psychologists that we refer to. We have EMDR providers. DNRS is a limbic response retraining system. We have a lot of tools, not just for the neurological or the metabolic, but also for the psychological. And as long as we're addressing all three, you can typically see changes in positive changes in recovery. But if you leave any stone unturned, there's potential that we're not going to get to the root cause of things.
Traditional Chinese medicine as well as Ayurveda has been talking about how everything is connected to one another for a very, very long time. This was one of the most interesting examples for me that actually made me realize how everything was connected. Because even when you go into medical school, even in homeopathic medical school, they didn't necessarily teach us how everything was connected. Like, what was the thing that actually connects everything, and how to look at everything and never really leave out anything, right? They tell you to look at something that is peculiar to it or unique to it. And those are all fantastic things to look at as well, but also to understand where is this coming from. So one patient of mine, so she had ankle pain, okay, and she was driving a pickup truck. And she couldn't drive the pickup truck because it was a manual transmission and she couldn't hit the clutch. It was on her left ankle. The pain was on her left ankle and she couldn't use the clutch. So she had to stop using it. So she came to me because she hated driving an automatic transmission car. This was the reasoning why she came, right? Because she had been through 3 surgeries on her ankle and it didn't fix it. And she was in pain every day. So she came in and we talked and I said, okay. And I thought, okay, it almost sounds like inflammation. I'm going to treat it as such. Gave her remedy, sent her home, came back next month and said nothing changed. And she was not necessarily a believer of natural medicine or anything. She just came because her husband told her to, and she had been through all of these things and nothing has worked. So I knew that I didn't really have a long time with her, So this was like the second time. I'm like, okay. So I said, okay, I need to go a little bit more detail, history here. And she wasn't really very open to talking about anything either. She was like kind of like very closed and didn't really want to share much about anything. And then I actually had to tell her, I said, listen, if I need to help you, I need to understand you better. I really don't know you. And I'm trying to actually fix something here. But I'm going to ask you some weird questions because it may seem like it's unrelated. But you just have to trust me. And you have nothing to lose. I'm a stranger. If you tell me something, it's never going to leave this room. And you may get your ankle better or not. But you're not going to lose anything. So just for that reason, just for grins and giggles, can you go along with this? And she was like, okay. I said, do you feel angry about something? So liver is associated with anger. So I asked her, were you angry about something? And she said, well, it's really a personal matter. I don't want to talk about it. I said, well, as I said before, I really have no need to know it. But if you tell me, I can make sense of it. It's like putting pieces of the puzzle together. There is a connection here. That's the reason I'm asking. So eventually she said, well, my husband cheated on me. And when he did, I was so angry at him. And I was coming out of the building and I took a misstep. And I actually my ankle turned and I fell off the pavement. And that's how my ankle turned. And that's when the injury happened. And from that point on, I've had 3 surgeries. Nothing has worked. So I treated her for repressed anger. And her ankle pain went away. And that was a huge aha moment for me. Because up until that point in time, this was almost already maybe 6-7 years into my practice. I don't think I actually understood how everything was connected. But Chinese medicine helped me put those pieces of the puzzle together. And I was like, wow. And I didn't think it was going to work. And I didn't think it was going to work. It was not like, wow, I knew everything because it was very new to me. Chinese medicine was very new. I just learned it. But I was just putting it in practice to see. I was like, well, this didn't work. Let's try this. And when it worked, it was like I was ecstatic. And then, of course, I started going down that path of, I want to know everything. I want to know why this is happening in every person. If you find the root cause, the effect will go away. Oh, there is a homeopathic remedy for it. So it's called lachesis. It's made from snake venom. Okay, and again, as I said, in homeopathy, we use so many remedies that are actually poisonous in its whole original large form, in a crude form. But in a nano form, it's actually curative. So lachesis is a remedy for anger, and it's repressed anger specifically. And I gave her that remedy and her pain went away completely. And it was like a miracle magic. It was not an anti-inflammatory remedy. It was nothing to do with her ankle. It was not a remedy of the joint. It was not a remedy of the ligaments, tendons. Nope. But it actually cured the case. In Isabella's case, she mentioned about how she was afraid of the water. She wouldn't get into the water. The remedy that she actually got for it is called as hydrophobinum or licinum, which is made from rabid dog. So rabies, typically, what do they actually have? They have hydrophobia or fear of water. That was the same remedy she was given. Overnight, it was cured. And I've seen, miraculous cases like that over and over and over again. I actually had a patient with POTS, and it's postural orthostatic, tachycardia syndrome. That's what it is. So, and in that case, the patient was super anxious. I always tell the patients what they are taking. That's, my ammo. I like to tell them, I want to educate them. I don't like to keep them in the dark. Like lots of natural medicine doctors do that. They actually put numbers on it or alphabets on it and give them the medicines. And I don't do that. Especially homeopathic doctors do that a lot. And I don't do that. I actually give them the name of the medicine. I give them the potency. I tell them exactly how to use it. And then I tell them how to use it for acutes too. So I usually teach my patients how to treat themselves for acute problems at home with homeopathy and herbs. Actually, that brings up the fact that I'm actually writing a book, and the book is just about to come out just for that. And the book is actually called What's the Remedy for That? That's the name of the book. And that's exactly the reason why, because what I've seen is that when people treat acutes right, they have less chronic diseases. There are many emotions that can be tied to many different problems. So going back to that POTS patient, his anxiety. So one of the things that he requested was, don't tell me the name of the medicine. Because if you tell me the name of the medicine, I'm going to go research it and I'm going to get more anxious from it, right? But one of the key factors for him, he was actually a music teacher in middle school. And he was actually studying, going to college to get a degree in music. But he wasn't even able to do that because of the POTS, right? Again, we would think, okay, POTS has nothing to do with anxiety and things like that. But it had everything to do with it. So his anxiety was really depleting his adrenals. And because of that, he was actually having POTS. So I did not treat the POTS. I treated his anxiety, the nervousness that he was having. And I gave a remedy that was made from silver nitrate. Again, silver nitrate is a poison. We make a remedy out of that. And I gave him silver nitrate, cured within a month. And he had been through treatment for 4 years. And he almost had to stop college because he couldn't really go through school and work and still be able to function because he couldn't sleep. He was always dizzy and he was, feeling worse. And he thought the anxiety came from the POTS, but it wasn't. It actually came first. But it was so sublime that people don't realize that can actually contribute to many other things. Coming back to Neha, that was the reason why she lost sense of smell. It was her anxiety. So it was actually sublime. So there is a hormone that your adrenals makes. It's called as the epinephrine, which is what is an EpiPen, okay, which is what actually opens up airways. So we make this hormone. All of us make it. So when we don't make enough of it, people suffer from asthma, from allergies, from congestion, and things like that. So in her case, she had anxiety for a while, and that was a reason why she actually had congestion. So the cedar was just a trigger, but that was not the cause. So only when we were able to treat her adrenals was she able to make her own epinephrine, and this went away.
Hey there, it's Jonathan. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode. It's a wrap. Healing Revolution is getting very close to the end. And as we near our very end of this series, it's a quick reminder to say, join our program, come with us on a journey. Let me help you apply the information that you've learned in our live training sessions, in our group coaching sessions, in the Healing Revolution live challenge, and so much more. Let us show you what we can do with the amazing Well of Life formulas and the red light therapy belt. These combination of therapies, as we support organ function, we get the red light therapy over the critical organs. We can outperform other programs by a long shot because most of them aren't combining this. They kind of have this one thing here. It doesn't really work because the problem is that it's only supporting one set of functions, but it needs other things to be supported because you're often in a chronic state. And so that one little thing, that extra supplement, that extra thing here and there is not effective. Even a full supplement protocol, if it's not using red light therapy, it's not near as effective and may not work. And so I wanted to help you with something that I knew would work for you, that would support you and help you in your health and healing. And it's just an action step now of saying, yes, I'm excited about that. That makes sense to me and I want that. I'm going to claim it. You can do that here on this page by scrolling down below and placing your order. Join us inside this program. You'll get all $5,000 worth of free gifts. We're looking forward to supporting you and helping you in the best and most amazing way possible. And I'm honored to be able to help you achieve these great goals with your health. It's well within reach, and it's just about saying yes to yourself, yes to your health, yes to your healing. And you can do that by scrolling down below and placing your order here on this page. Thanks so much. As we put this bonus episode to a close, one truth is undeniable. Stress, fear, and anxiety are deeply intertwined with our modern day suffering. Dr. Jennifer Taylor highlighted how we're unknowingly surrounded by over 700,000 toxic chemicals daily, from invisible EMFs emitted by our Wi-Fi to the pesticides in our food. These silent toxic exposures attack our bodies and are one of the root causes of anxiety and stress, which we face today. And as Dr. Salma Sridharan explained, the emotional roots of disease are too often dismissed. The statistics are staggering, and this only shows that we shouldn't belittle stress. Over 75% of chronic illnesses have emotional or psychological stress at their core. It shifts our understanding of disease from something purely physical to something deeply emotional. This means that we can achieve true healing when we address both physical and emotional components. The reality is that stress and fear have been weaponized against us, manipulating not just our minds, but our bodies as well. However, by understanding the toxic overload we face, embracing emotional healing, and supporting our body's innate ability to heal, we can begin to reverse the damage done. Thanks so much for joining me in this episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.